right, welcome to Powered by Authenticity. I'm so happy to have everybody here this evening. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you're one of our longtime listeners, thank you. We appreciate each and every one of you. And tonight, you are in for a treat. Lisa Thomas joins me for a fantastic conversation. I've been looking forward to this. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
I'm excited to be here, Emily. Thank you.
Awesome. Would you like to tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in Los Angeles. I have 3 children. I'm married. And this past weekend, we had a huge undertaking in where we've lived in our home for quite a while, and California has termites. So we basically had to move everything out except for furniture and clothing. We had to move out. And I feel like we've done this huge undertaking, and now I've got to put it all back in. So that's kind of where I am right now.
Oh no, that is awful. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Better to do it now than have the destruction of those termites later. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, thank you for taking time sounds like just a unique way to spend the week. So thanks for taking a few minutes with us.
Oh,
We
absolutely.
appreciate it. Well, we'd like to do a little icebreaker just to get to know people on a little bit of a personal level. So, question for you. Do you have any type of comfort food that you always like to have?
Yes, I do. And I eat it. So I got to preface it here. I eat this food and I crave it whenever I have to write content. So
Okay.
it's when I have to write that this hand to mouth addiction comes in, and I like spicy, salty chips.
Oh.
That's my comfort, and that's what I like. It's my go-to. Now, I've learned to replace it with things, but that's my ultimate favorite.
Oh, spicy, salty I'm a big salty gal myself, so I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Well, let's hear what producer Ken likes. Hey, producer Ken, how's it going tonight?
It's going good.
What about you? What's your favorite comfort food?
Listen, we're around Buffalo. You know, the go-to is a chicken wing.
Oh, chicken wings are awesome. Do you get them spicy?
The hotter, the better.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. He's my producer too then. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to be part of home of the chicken wing, and I'm kind of with you though, Lisa. I tend to gravitate towards the popcorn, so good salty popcorn. I do have to say I have a book chapter due in 14 days, so I might try your spicy chips though.
If you want an alternative, I'll tell you what I've used to replace it is spicy pistachios, and you can get them in the supermarket. They're called salt and pepper pistachios, and they're in the shell. So the junk food aspect is the salty chips. Those are my favorite, but my replacement for that are the salt and pepper pistachios.
Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look for those. I love that.
They are in 2 spots in the supermarket, over underneath the fruits and vegetables in that section.
Okay.
You know how they have those things underneath the aisles, and they're over in the chips area, in the nuts area. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna go look for them. I came to the realization today I only have 14 days and got a little nervous.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. So I would love for you to share a little bit about your organization, Epigenetics for Global Impact.
Absolutely. So it is a platform to help people move past their stuff, so to speak, and embrace who they are. And I do it in a variety of ways. Private work. I teach people my methods so people can get certified. I offer master classes, but it's all about the science of epigenetics.
Awesome. And share us the epigenetics. Tell us more about that, what it is, how it helps us find ourselves, essentially. Tell us a little bit more about exactly what epigenetics means.
Absolutely. Good question. So we have our life experiences. These are the things that happen to us, from the moment we're born until where we are presently. And those types of experiences and traumas in our life can kind of get stuck in our body. But what we don't often talk about are the inherited patterns from our ancestors. And epigenetics, one, there's a physical science to epigenetics. There's our hardwiring of our DNA. And this DNA code, our helix, we can't really change that, right? You can't change how tall you are. We really can't change the color of our eyes, our skin color. These are the things that are anchored as our DNA helix. But how our DNA expresses itself is through our epigenetics. And that's based on the life experiences of our ancestors. So their beliefs, their traumas, their life experiences, that gets handed down in a simple way to say it through our cellular memory. And they're called informational tags, Emily. And we all have them. There's no wronging those that have come before. We get so many gifts and talents from our ancestors. We get our resilience, our tenacity, our love for knowledge, our athletic abilities, our music abilities, like our ability to be charismatic. Those come from those that have come before us, but so do their fears and their phobias and those limiting beliefs that they have. And in a nutshell, an informational tag can get turned on and off at any time in our life. So let's say that there's 3 siblings in a family and they all inherit addiction. Now, addiction might get turned on for all 3, or it might not. But let's say it does. So one might inherit, it might show up as the addiction to alcohol. So let's say there's a predisposition to alcohol that's coming through the bloodline within their epigenetics. So it might show up as that for them. But let's say the second sibling, it's not the addiction to alcohol. They're able to to avoid alcohol, but maybe their addiction shows up as perfectionism. Or the third one, it might show up as the addiction to needing to control everything, right? Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. And I can see where when you're growing up with that, like how it could bloom into differing ways of appearing for those in your families. It's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, and it could be that that alcohol runs rampant, and all three siblings end up with challenges with alcohol. And then as we get older, or even when we witness as a child, we'll witness, and that can become a learned behavior with alcohol as well. It's just a random example, but there's a lot of reasons why we are the way we are. And I love talking about the inherited ones that subconsciously we don't think about.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how many people probably stop and think about where something about themselves is coming from? Like that's time that you have to spend with yourself that probably
Mm-hmm.
I know most people probably just don't think about taking that time.
They don't think about it, and we don't know what we don't know.
Mhm.
So, a lot of people that come to me, they've done a lot of personal growth work. They've had good shifts in therapy, but therapy just isn't working fast enough, or they're repeating the same things, or maybe they've done a lot of personal development and they're in business, but they find that they keep hitting those same income levels, or they keep hitting the same sabotaging patterns, or they keep having these fears around money. And then they come to me and they're like, I've done the work. Why do they keep showing up? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I can see that from a leadership perspective. I would love for you to talk about that because I could see is if you're a leader and you keep hitting a wall, like
Mm-hmm.
understanding why you keep hitting that wall and not being able to make it to the next step on the ladder or
Mm-hmm.
next step from an income bracket and
Mm-hmm.
why that would hold you back. So I could see,
Yeah.
so I'm talk about work that you may do with leaders who are just trying to grow themselves in their careers.
And that's a great question, Emily, because I'm sure you've noticed this. Leaders want to make an impact in the world, really and
Mhm.
truly. Their passion, their purpose, their whole meaning to movement in life is to help other people for positive, whether that's somebody that's bringing clean water to Bolivia, whether that's an actor or a producer who wants people to take them out of their busy life and give them a 2 hours freedom, right? Whether that is a business, a coach or a mentor. It happens in all areas. There isn't one leader over another. I think of leaders that are lifting as they go, to me, right? But what happens is, for a leader, when they get tripped up in either a sabotaging pattern or they feel like their impact isn't going anywhere, then it keeps them out of peak performance. Now, we can talk about peak performance in the athletic, but I'm talking about it in the energy in which we carry, and that motivation, that ability to rise above the struggle, because struggle's part of life. We're going to struggle at some time in our life, and that's a whole nother conversation we could have. But it's about being able to move through what usually trips us up. Doesn't have to stay there. So we'll go into a little bit of the other side of it now. Every word in the dictionary has a frequency attached to it. It's a megahertz. But we humans don't live our life by, oh, what megahertz am I vibrating at, or what am I feeling? We think of it, and we experience life through emotions, right? So shame would be a very low vibration, and love would be a high vibration. So let's say somebody's single, and they walk into this gathering, and they see somebody across the room, and they're like, oh, I'm a female, I'll use, oh, that guy's cute. And then within 2 seconds, they say, yeah, he's not my guy. Well, the truth is, you really don't know that guy, right? But what happens is we radiate from the inside out different frequencies. This will cause us to attract certain people, and then we can prejudge them based on what we get, like that feeling back to us, when the truth is we don't know anything about it. So as a leader, when we bump up against the fear of speaking on stage, or the fear of being on social media because we're on camera, and are we, oh, do we feel like we're not pretty enough? Do we compare ourselves? As a leader, you can't compare. You're in your own zone, you're in your own lane. And so if there's an inherited pattern of comparing, then you're never going to feel good enough. Not ever. Somebody else's success will look better than yours. And that's an inherited pattern. It begins that way. Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. And I could see, and I was just, as you were thinking about that, I was thinking about the different levels within an organization. And it's so funny. I could see where somebody would have kind of that inherent thought of, I'm just a janitor. I'll never get any further. That's what my parents were. That's how we are as a family. Am I off on base on that? I could really see somebody needing to get help to see that maybe that's just because what your parents were, but there's so much more that's available for you.
There's so much more. And it's interesting you say that, because my grandmother used to say, now we don't hear it now, so much. And it's because I think population is more. But she used to say, oh, I was just born on the wrong side of the tracks, or they're born on the wrong side of the tracks. Well, that has real life meaning back in those days. It depended on the side of the railway train station, or the train tracks that you were born on, what like if you were accepted or not accepted, if you lived in poverty or you were considered wealthy. And so those feelings that you express are very real, and they do come through lineage.
That's so fascinating to me. It really is. It's part of my backstory is that when I was a senior in high school, I was told girls from Alexandria, New York, do not become CEOs. Like that was, and I had to fight a lot of barriers for myself. And, I didn't really realize it too much, but all of a sudden I'm like, why can't I be a CEO when I was faced with yet another career, kind of jarring incident. And, I would just think that if people could take that step back and process what they've been telling themselves their whole life, or they get to a point where they're just ready, they can feel that they're ready to go, tapping into, your inherent kind of, backdrop, it would be so helpful to be able to get to those next levels.
It is so helpful. And the first step is awareness. And that might be, what did your parents model? Did they have fears around money? Let's just, did they have fears, or did they have a belief? Did your father, I'm going to say, or mother, turn down another job opportunity because they were safe where they were? And that would look something like in corporate America. Did that engineer really want to start his own business? Did the mailroom father who had 2 jobs really want to do something else, but he didn't because he needed to put food on the table? And maybe he had insurance at the time, right? And so we'll
Yeah.
limit ourselves based on our belief system. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think right now in 2025, this is such an important topic. And here's why. Because I feel like, and this is my perspective, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
There's no job descriptions anymore. But when I was growing up and my parents were, still alive, it was you go to work 9 to 5 for a company,
Mm-hmm.
you apply to a job description. But now we have so many different avenues that are available to us that we have to be able to drop down those barriers that are just what we grew up with. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but I feel more and more like
Absolutely.
we just have to break that wall down because there's so much that's available to us.
And the only way to break that wall down is by taking action through uncomfortability. Because you're right. Our parents went to a job from 9 to 5, and the whole thing is that they needed to be vested and they needed that retirement, right? And they worked their
Yep.
entire life to retire at 65, and then what? Right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
they waited for vacations, and they waited to be happy, and they waited to do life. And there's no judgment on them. They came from parents who lived during the Great Depression. And
Yep.
that was the reality. If you had a job, you kept the job. But often those Great Depression would be our great grandparents would have said, you have a job. There's, be happy with what you have. But
Yep.
now in 2025, it's more about feeling. Yes, I'm using the word feeling, what works and what doesn't. And often I talk about triggers. And when we live in a trigger of frustration and somebody gets irritated really quickly or frustrated, take a pause and say, what is this really showing me today? What action, because it's not going to be comfortable, I guarantee it. But what happens is if we let the anger build up over frustration and then we act out of anger, then often we regret our decision. But if we can pause and say, what's the frustration showing me today? Oh, maybe I need to hire somebody different, or maybe I need to get out of this corporate job and start, or, looking for another job, or maybe I should start my side hustle while I am employed and let that business build up while I am currently employed. And then I can move on from it.
Yeah. No, I love that. So many people are afraid to take on that side hustle. And I think it's important. It's becoming more and more important to do so because of just where we are in the world. But it's so frightening. It's scary,
It is scary. And fear is often inherited. Now, it can get trapped in our life, in our body, because we have scary things that happen to us or bad things that happen to us in our lifetime. But the fear of no food, let's say in that Great Depression era. So then we're raised that we have to eat everything on our plate, or the fear of not having a job. So it's selfish to think you should have a different job when you should be happy with the one you have, or the fear of leaving an unhealthy relationship because some relationship is better than no relationship, right? The fear of the unknown often keeps us trapped in the unhealthy in some area in our life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, I love that line. I love that because and two, every area of who you are kind of it feeds into your health and your wellness and your especially from a mental health awareness perspective is that if you're not healthy in your relationship, if you're not healthy or happy at work, if you're not nourishing your body and soul with good things, then you're just going to wake up every day feeling terrible.
Exactly, right? And you don't feel good. You're not happy, right? But the fear of changing it, the fear of change is real. Let's just talk to that for a moment. People really can bully themselves around fear energy, like they could be different. We should have could have be different. We should have could have done it differently. But the fear of change is real. And that's because we get comfortable in the struggle that we're in, and we know what that feels like, and we know what that looks like. We might not like it, but it's what we know. And so the fear of change is the subconscious going, oh, wait, I don't know if it's going to be worse. I don't know. Let's just stay in this. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I mean, just how that it like prohibits growth of just staying there and being unhappy. I mean, you do not grow personally, you're not growing professionally, you're not growing spiritually. It just puts it puts everything on hold from a growth and just happiness perspective that it's just, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yeah.
And often that happens, though, for people, Emily, that are caught in people pleasing. And they've just been earning their worth their whole life to be invited to the party, so to speak, to be invited into somebody's life because they can give a service to them in some way, whether it's a
Yeah.
listening ear as a friend, or they end up being a caregiver, is honoring their parents, right? Or they have
Yeah.
a child who requires a lot of care. But what happens over the years when no self-care has been given back, when they don't, where they're only giving is they're going to reach a certain age, and then they pause and they go, everybody else in their life has moved on, and what have I done? Where am I? What can I do now? And so I think what I hear you saying is to take those steps every day, weekly, sometime in the current time period, to do something that either
Yeah.
moves the needle forward in your life and making a difficult decision, making a little decision. Maybe it's driving home a different way. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not making your bed that day and getting out of a pattern, doing a pattern disrupt just to change things up can actually create more change moving forward.
I love that. Just a little step. It's ever so slight, but what a change it can make when you just make a change of something. You're stale, you're stagnant, you keep
Mhm,
doing the same things over. But if you just turn left instead of right,
mhm.
how impactful could that end up being?
It's a way to practice it.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah,
Mhm,
that's amazing. Well, I'm curious, what would what should someone do? So this is to me, I this is just such a fascinating topic, but what's how could somebody get started in understanding what their, where they should how they could
mhm,
start to change or maybe where their
mhm.
inherent trying to think of the right
Program.
word here, but
Yeah.
yeah, is
Yeah,
kind
their
of
inherent
coming from.
program.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, be mindful and maybe keep a journal of
Good idea.
pausing and saying, where have I heard this before? So let's say somebody finds themselves bumping up against money fears, right? Pause and write it down. Maybe you heard that money doesn't grow on trees. Maybe you saw a pattern witnessed as a child, that your parents were always running out of money. They would get it, they would spend it, they always needed it, they were always in despair. Well, those patterns become part of our story too. And so first is to recognize that it's happening. That is a big step, because then we, through that lens, we can reframe, we can find the positive, we can decide to be the generation breaker. Now, of course, if somebody wants to go deeper, there are ways to clear these vibrational energies. I do teach a master class. I have one on July 19th, I believe, where I teach people how to do this for themselves.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, it's very interesting. I teach people how to do this whole method if they want it. And of course, there's opportunities in a group program as well as with me privately. But I am all about, Emily, empowering people, reminding them who they are, and really knowing that whatever your life is, if you want something more, that is doable. That is available to you. We're here on earth to have this soul experience in a body, a physical body, and to be happy, to have joy. And I believe we can have joy even when we're struggling, when we learn the wisdom as we go through it, right? Where we recognize the
Yeah.
lesson, so that we can move through it quicker, I think.
I love that, and, it's so important to find something, I try to take a step back every day and say, okay, what's one thing that
Beautiful.
brought me joy today?
Mhm.
Because I think there was a time, especially during the pandemic, there was
Mm.
so much that was happening, and the world feels so heavy even today. 2025 has started off heavy, but
Oh.
if we can take a step back, once a day and say, oof, okay, this one moment brought me
Mhm.
joy. It made me happy.
Mhm. Yeah, and to recognize that is really important. Otherwise, the human nature is to get caught up in the chaos, and there's so much chaos in the world right now, and what was wrong what's right is been made to be wrong, and what's wrong is made to be right. You know what I mean? There's so much confusion,
Yeah.
and it's about pausing and finding the joy in the day and what does go right and to recognize it. Mhm.
Yeah,
I
and
love that.
and I love yeah, and I think the part that you brought up too is when you do get upset or something triggers, taking a moment just to pause, write
Mhm.
that down so that you also have something to go back and reflect upon. So you almost have like what brings you your joy and
Mhm.
cataloging that, but
Mhm.
making yourself aware of situations that you put yourself in or you were part of that day that just triggered something that is part of your
Yeah.
that background. Yeah.
Because then we have a choice. And when we believe and recognize that we always have a choice, even as if that's how we choose to feel about something, right? We have a choice whether we're going to gossip or not. We have a choice
Yeah.
whether we can forgive or not, or let it go. So when we pause in those moments of triggers and recognize or even say to ourselves, this is another tip, Emily, is oftentimes we are taught as children to push down the anger, to not to push down what we're feeling and move forward. And so now as adults, that's what we're in the habit of doing. And we're not used to recognizing when we feel angry. We're either happy or not. So is to pause in that moment and say, like I say to myself, Lisa, I feel this anger. Body, I understand this anger. I'm allowing this anger to be felt. And so what will happen oftentimes is the body just wants to be heard. And then all of a sudden it's like literally you move through it. And I will even say, and I love you, right? I love you, Lisa. I love you, body. And the anger will pass. So by acknowledging what you're feeling is a big step in moving through those triggers.
Oh, that's great words of advice. I think I'm going to take that because I'm so great at listening, and my tag is always people want to be heard. Well, the same
Mhm.
thing can be said for myself, right? So every day taking that time to
Mhm. Mhm.
to welcome myself and be heard, like
Yeah.
take some
Yeah.
moments. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and to
love that.
acknowledge yourself, and that is just one simple way, which actually is a little harder than you think, okay? But one simple way that honors self-nourishment and feeds our soul. And it also helps to connect the soul to the body where you feel like you're one. You're more aligned, you're more congruent, and that's what we want. That's what we wanna
Yeah,
feel inside, and that'll bring peace and calmness.
yeah, which I think a lot of us in the world could use right now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I could keep talking about this for hours. I just find it so fascinating, and you're just a wealth of information and giving useful tips and how to, uh, really respect ourselves and value ourselves. And I love that, and get to learn more about our background. I would like to know, how can someone find further information about yourself and how they could work with you? And I think we had a oh, there we go. I lost you for a second.
Mhm.
I think we're having a little bit of a connection issue. So Lisa, I'm not sure if you can still hear me.
Yeah. Well, go to my Instagram page. That's an easy one. Lisa Thomas Global Impact. Impact. You just type that into Instagram. You can follow me. There's links in bios. You can go to my website, which is Epigenetics for Global Impact. And all roads lead to that. At some point, reach from your end, I'll hear it on the that go like.
All right, awesome.
I don't know what's wrong.
That's okay. I think we got you back.
Okay. I think we got us back, but I don't know what's wrong. I says I have 4 bars. I have all my internet.
Yeah, here too. But I was able to grab a lot of the audio for your contact information, and we'll definitely put it in the show notes. And I just have to say, I've enjoyed this so much. And anything else fun on the horizon for 2025?
I just got back from Bali, and I'm headed to Peru in May.
Amazing.
And then I'm doing my masterclass in July. So it's fun. How about you?
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of vacations coming up, and then I've got 2 books that are coming out this year.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
I need to get some creative juices going.
Well, I'm excited to read them.
Well, thank you. And thank you for being here. I hope that you'll come back because I
would
would
love to.
Oh my gosh, I would love to keep talking about this topic. I've got like extra questions for like sidebars. I'm like, I think it would make a great, amazing topic. So, well, Lisa, thank you so much for being here. And thank you to all of our listeners. And thanks, producer Ken. I appreciate your time.
You got it.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate you being here. We'll catch up soon.